So imagine you're a politician
Okay.
and you are just facing this relentless, vicious barrage of attack ads.
Right, just getting hammered in the press.
Exactly. So do you release a defensive statement denying everything? No. Instead, you write this incredibly upbeat, catchy campaign song entirely from the perspective of the evil cartoon villain they've made you out to be.
You just put the villain cape on?
Yes, you put it on, you dance around in it, and you force everyone who hates you to sing along to the tune.
That is a brilliant way to frame it.
Well, looking at the stack of sources you sent over for us to analyze today, that is the exact strategy we are decoding. We're going on a deep dive into a masterclass in narrative control.
We really are.
We're looking at Taylor Swift's 2014 cultural monolith, Blank Space. And our mission here isn't just to revisit a massive pop hit, but to deconstruct the actual mechanics behind it.
Yeah, how it actually functions under the hood.
Right. So using the deep lyrical analysis from swiftly sung stories, the sheet music breakdowns from real-world music theory, and the historical context you pulled from American Songwriter and Wikipedia, we are going to look at how a heavily scrutinized artist performed basically psychological judo on the media.
Psychological judo. I love that.
Right.
And to really understand that setting the baseline for the environment in 2014 is crucial. We have to look at the machinery of celebrity culture at that specific
It
moment.
was a very different internet back then.
It was. We were at the peak of that aggressive early 2010s blog era.
Yeah.
You know, the Perez Hilton, Gawker-style tabloid frenzy.
Oh, yeah, just ruthless.
Very ruthless. And Swift was executing this massive artistic pivot. She was leaving the safety of country music to release 1989.
Which was her first, official, full-fledged pop album.
Exactly. And simultaneously, the media apparatus had seemingly decided to aggressively dismantle her long-standing America's sweetheart image.
Right. They really turned on her.
They did. She was being relentlessly characterized as this serial dater. And the sources point out how suffocating the structural sexism of the coverage was.
Right, because every public appearance, every relationship, every breakup was subjected to this intense, frankly, slut-shaming scrutiny.
Yeah, the dominant narrative reduced her entire musical output to this, predatory harvesting operation.
A harvesting operation, wow.
Yeah, the tabloids claimed she allegedly chewed through high-profile men solely to write bitter breakup anthems about them.
Which is wild. And the temptation for any artist in those crosshairs would be to release, I don't know, a stripped-down acoustic ballad about the pain of being misunderstood.
Something very defensive.
Right, something defensive. But that would have just validated the media's framing of her as a victim of her own dating life.
Would have played right into their hands.
Exactly. So instead, she leans all the way into the skid, she looks at the man-eater caricature the tabloids drew, and she essentially says, "You want a manipulative, boy-crazy psychopath."
Let me give you one.
Yes. Let me introduce you to the most glamorous, terrifying version of that character imaginable. And the literary device she employs to do this is just fascinating when we look at the lyrics.
It really is. She weaponizes the concept of the unreliable narrator.
Right.
She constructs this fictionalized, highly exaggerated, hyper version of herself. And the sheer divide in how the public consumed this narrative reveals a lot about media literacy at the time.
Because half the audience got the joke.
Exactly. Half the audience immediately recognized the razor-sharp satire. But the other half, who had been conditioned by years of this tabloid framing, genuinely believed she was having a moment of unhinged honesty.
They thought she was literally confessing to being a deeply unstable psychopath.
Yeah, they completely missed the irony.
Which is crazy because the setup for that deception happens in the very first breath of the track.
Right.
Let's look at the lyrics. "Nice to meet you, where you been? I could show you incredible things. Magic, madness, heaven, sin."
It's such a great opening.
It is, because if you stop at line 2, it plays as a completely standard, starry-eyed romantic trope.
The classic, "Where have you been all my life?"
Right. But the pivot in that third line completely destabilizes the mood. Dropping words like madness and sin alongside magic feels less like a romantic invitation and more like, I don't know, a horror movie villain locking the door behind you.
Oh, absolutely. It's Theater's dare, plain and simple.
Yeah.
Right out of the gate, she establishes this dread-soaked tone. And the delivery itself, that clipped, almost staccato rhythm on magic, madness, heaven, sin.
It's very rhythmic.
Yeah, it mimics the feeling of being read your Miranda rights or having the terms and conditions of a very dangerous contract dictated to you.
Oh, that's a great way to put it, a contract.
She is warning the subject, and the listener by extension, that the experience of dating this fictionalized version of her is going to be chaotic and destructive.
Right, she's handing the guy a liability waiver before strapping him into the roller coaster.
Exactly. Sign here before we begin.
And that feeds directly into the song's central metaphor, which is romance as a blood sport.
Yes.
When she sings, boys only want love if it's torture, don't say I didn't warn you, she is executing this brilliant fourth wall break.
She steps completely out of the character for a split second there.
Yeah, to deliver this systemic critique on the male pursuit of women.
The cynicism in those lines is so potent. According to the analysis we reviewed, she's diagnosing a societal pathology where the players aren't actually looking for a healthy partnership.
Right, they don't want stability.
No, they are addicted to the friction, the chase, the back and forth torture of the game. And once the prey is captured, the thrill evaporates.
So true.
So by adopting this hypervillain persona, she is offering to become the ultimate source of the torture they secretly crave. She is reflecting their own toxic desires back at them.
Which perfectly sets up one of the most recognizable choruses of the entire 2010s decade.
Oh, without a doubt.
Got a long list of ex-lovers. They'll tell you I'm insane, but I've got a blank space, baby, and I'll write your name.
We have to talk about the concept of this list.
We do, because it's a direct, literal reference to the obsessive running tally the media kept of her relationships, right?
Yes. But the inclusion of the blank space is where the psychological horror really peaks.
How so?
Well, the blank space represents the inevitability of the subject's demise. Before the relationship has even conceptually begun, she has already carved out the headstone.
Wow, preemptive plotting.
Exactly. She's preemptively adding this new man to her metaphorical burn book.
Right, right.
It perfectly encapsulates the toxic persona she's parodying. The calculating artist who enters a romance solely to mine it for emotional raw material.
And she's already planning the extraction process before the first date is even over.
Exactly. It's so cold and calculated.
And the visual cues she weaves into the second verse are just as layered. She paints this picture of cherry lips, crystal skies, and follows it immediately with, "Darling, I'm a nightmare, dressed like a daydream."
The aesthetic commentary there is brilliant.
Yeah, because we all know the signature red lip was the defining visual staple of the 1989 era.
It was everywhere.
But in the context of this lyric, she is transforming that pristine, classic American beauty standard into almost a modern-day scarlet letter.
It is this incredibly rare deployment of weaponized self-awareness in mainstream pop.
Weaponized self-awareness.
Yeah, because she highlights the intense dissonance between her highly curated, perfectly polished external aesthetic and the fabricated, manipulative monster the media insisted was lurking beneath it.
The juxtaposition of nightmare and daydream.
Right. It takes the sexist critiques leveled against her, that she is too calculating, too fast, too reckless, and it just wears them as armor.
The lyrical satire is completely undeniable. But what blew my mind, reading through the real-world music theory breakdowns you provided, is that the actual composition of the song is doing the exact same thing.
Yes. The sheet music itself is a meta joke.
It's incredible. So we're dealing with a track written in F major, relying heavily on the IV chord progression.
Right. F major, D minor, B flat, and C major.
So we're talking about literally the most recognizable standard four-chord loop in pop history. The progression that everyone from the Beatles to Blink-182 has used to death.
Using that specific progression is an act of pure musical irony on her part.
How so? Like, break that down for us.
Well, she is deliberately constructing a song that mocks the formulaic, predictable, unpretentious nature of tabloid gossip by anchoring it to the most formulaic, predictable chord progression in the history of Western pop music.
Oh man, that is so smart.
It's a subtle, outstretched middle finger to the industry. The structural implication is very clear. It's like she's saying, you want to reduce my complex personal life to a predictable, easily digestible cliche.
I will write you a global smash hit using the biggest musical cliche in the textbook.
Exactly.
It's wonderfully petty.
It is.
But it's executed with such intellectual rigor because even though it uses that standard progression, the verses don't actually feel standard. They feel incredibly tense.
Yeah, they do.
You get this palpable sense of a character who is just tightly wound, like vibrating with suppressed madness.
And the architecture of that tension relies on a device called a pedal point.
Okay, what is a pedal point?
So throughout the verses, there is a static bass note that stubbornly holds its ground, refusing to shift even as the harmonies change above it.
Okay.
The melody simply outlines a basic F major triad. But the psychology of a pedal point is fascinating, because it acts as an anchor. It physically restricts musical movement.
Oh, it builds suspense.
Tremendous suspense. The human ear is conditioned to expect the bass to resolve and move with the chords.
We want it to move.
Right, we want that release.
Yeah.
So by keeping it static, the production mirrors the controlled, simmering madness of the narrator. She is holding back basically keeping it caged until the chorus.
So she's caging the crazy with the bass note.
Exactly.
And then when that cage opens in the chorus, there is a very specific harmonic shift. Moving through that standard IVV progression, so F to D minor, expecting to go to B flat, she drops the title of the song. And suddenly the progression moves to a G minor 7 chord. Moving to a G minor 7 right there feels like it actively pushes the song forward instead of letting it rest.
It does. It substitutes the chord we expect for one that forces us into the next measure.
Why does it feel so forceful?
That forward push is driven by the cycle of falling fifths. The movement from a D chord to a G chord exerts this incredible gravitational pull in music theory.
Gravitational pull.
Yeah, it creates urgent forward momentum. Furthermore, G minor 7 functions as a brilliant substitute chord for B flat because they share almost all the same notes.
So it's close enough to sound familiar but different enough to surprise you.
Exactly. It provides a sound that is eerily familiar yet subtly destabilized.
And the fact that this substitution lands precisely on the lyric, "But I've got a blank space, baby," is just masterful.
It really is. It's a minor harmonic surprise that perfectly mirrors the narrative Trapp's bringing shut.
Oh, I love that. The musical architecture propels the listener forward at the exact moment the lyric delivers the punchline.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about how that architecture was actually built in the studio, because the production, handled by Max Martin and Shellback, completely bucks the trend of 2014 pop.
It does. It really stood out on the radio.
Yeah, because 2014 was all about this massive, overwhelming EDM wall of sound. But this is a remarkably sparse, minimalist electropop track. It relies heavily on a mid-1980s synth-pop aesthetic.
And that decision to draw from mid-80s synthwave is crucial to the song's thematic success.
Why the 80s specifically?
Because that specific era of pop music is inherently grandiose, cinematic, and just dripping with melodrama.
Right.
So they paired those dramatic synths with a very distinctive hip-hop influenced beat that functions almost like a metronome. Critics have actually noted it sounds like the heavy, resonant ticking of a grandfather clock.
Oh, wow. A ticking clock.
Yeah, and it instills this inescapable feeling of inevitability, of time slowly running out on this doomed romance.
That's so eerie.
But the most powerful tool Martin and Shellback utilize in the mix isn't an instrument at all.
What is it?
It adds the vacuum of silence.
Oh, right. Because of that minimalist production creates a sonic vacuum.
Yes.
Because there isn't a wall of sound competing for your attention, every tiny element is magnified.
Exactly.
So when she reaches the lyrical climax of adding a name to her list, they don't blast you with a synth horn or a massive drum fill. They just drop in the hyper-isolated sound of a clicking pen.
It's so good. Foley art in pop music is rarely utilized with such narrative precision.
Foley art. Yeah.
That click is the auditory breaking of the fourth wall. It's the literal sonic manifestation of the narrator updating her ledger.
Her ledger, the burn book.
Right. It forcibly reminds the listener that this entire song is a written narrative. It's a calculated entry into the tabloid mythology.
And the way the song ends is just as calculated. I mean, it doesn't fade out, and it doesn't end on a big, satisfying resolution. It just stops. It ends incredibly abruptly on the subdominant B-flat chord. It completely refuses to resolve back to the tonic F major chord.
The psychology of denying that resolution is deeply manipulative in the best way possible.
Yeah. It makes you slightly crazy.
It does. The human ear desperately craves the return to the tonic chord. Leaving it hanging on the subdominant creates a palpable sense of longing.
It as the musical equivalent of the classic shave and a haircut routine, where you purposefully leave off the two bits.
Exactly. The brain demands to finish the pattern.
Yeah.
So ending abruptly ensures maximum replayability because the listener unconsciously wants to hit play again just to relieve that harmonic tension.
They need closure.
Right. And narratively, it perfectly mirrors the behavior of the villainous character.
Oh, because she offers no closure to the men she discards.
Exactly. A woman who severs ties abruptly and just leaves them hanging.
That is incredible. The audio alone is a masterpiece of satire. But we have to talk about the video, because the visual translation of this madness took the cultural phenomenon to an entirely different level.
The music video is iconic.
Directed by Joseph Kahn, It doesn't just accompany the song, it actively expands the cinematic universe of this unreliable narrator.
It really built out the world.
They shot it primarily at Oheka Castle. And the sources note it relies heavily on a visual style that Khan openly attributed to Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange.
Which is such a specific and important reference. Kubrick's influence is essential to decoding the video's underlying message.
How so?
Well, Khan utilizes extreme, rigid symmetry and wide-angle lenses to create this visual environment of claustrophobic, manufactured perfection.
Right.
Yeah. A Clockwork Orange explores the aestheticization of ultraviolence and madness. Khan perfectly maps that concept onto the suffocating environment of immense wealth and high society.
I see.
The opulent setting, ballrooms, the manicured gardens, the horseback riding, it all serves as the sterile cage where this psychological violence is going to take place.
And we definitely see that violence escalate systematically. You have this staggeringly handsome partner played by model Sean O'Pry.
Yes.
And the moment his attention drifts to his phone, the switch flips.
The madness begins.
She slashes the oil portrait she just lovingly painted. She drops his burning clothes off a balcony. And famously, she takes a golf club and ruthlessly smashes his vintage AC Cobra.
That scene is legendary.
It really is. And we all recognize the visual reference to the 2009 Tiger Woods cheating scandal there. But the deployment of it here is what is brilliant.
It's a complete role reversal.
Right. She is taking a culturally defining moment of male infidelity and mirroring it back at the audience. She reverses the roles to play the part of the hysterical, destructive partner.
She is parodying the crazy ex-girlfriend trope by pushing it to its absolute most ridiculous extreme. And she's doing it entirely for the audience's amusement.
She knows exactly what she's doing.
She remains entirely in on the joke. The artist is essentially winking at the camera while she destroys a priceless sports car.
Which is probably why The Guardian famously categorized the video as a feminist daydream.
Yes. It laid bare the sheer absurdity of the sexist media narratives by amplifying them until they became farcical.
Right, you can't take it seriously anymore.
Exactly. And the execution was flawless. It swept the MTV Video Music Awards for Best Pop Video and Best Female Video.
It was inescapable. We all remember the massive pop culture footprint this song left, including, we have to mention, the infamous Starbucks lovers meme.
Oh, of course. You can't talk about Blank Space without talking about Starbucks lovers.
Right. For anyone who somehow missed this, millions of people genuinely thought she was singing Lonely Starbucks Lovers instead of, got a long list of ex-lovers.
I think even her mom thought she was singing Starbucks lovers.
Probably. We all know the joke, but looking at it through this analytical lens we have today, it perfectly illustrates the ultimate disconnect between an artist's intent and public consumption.
It really does. It is the ultimate manifestation of the death of the author concept in modern pop culture.
Yeah, explain that a bit.
Well, Swift meticulously engineers this razor-sharp metatextual critique of structural sexism in tabloid media.
Right, this deeply intellectual satire.
Yes, and then a massive faction of the global public decides the song is about drinking coffee alone at Starbucks.
It's hilarious.
It is. Once a piece of art is released into the wild, it ceases to belong to the creator. It becomes the property of the public as misinterpretations.
And the sheer volume of the public that consumed it was historic. When the video dropped, the track shot to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it actually dethroned her own lead single, Shake It Off.
Right, she bumped herself off the top spot.
Yeah.
And the historical weight of that achievement really cannot be overstated. In 2014, by succeeding herself at the #1 spot, she became the first woman in the history of the Billboard Hot 100 to achieve that feat.
The first woman ever. That is huge.
It was. The song spent 7 consecutive weeks at the summit. So it wasn't merely a successful single, it was a cultural monolith that redefined the trajectory of her career.
It proved she could completely dominate the pop landscape while simultaneously critiquing it.
Exactly. She beat them at their own game.
But the narrative of Blank Space didn't actually end with its initial chart run in 2014. The context of the sources you provided brings us to the 2019 dispute with music executive Scooter Braun.
Right. A huge moment in the industry.
So Braun acquired Big Machine Records, and with it, he acquired the master recordings of Swift-Hara's first 6 albums, which included 1989.
And the loss of those master recordings represented the loss of literal narrative control over her own life's work.
Which is deeply ironic, given what Blank Space is about.
It is. But her response to that crisis beautifully mirrors the strategic genius of Blank Space itself.
Who so?
Well, instead of merely accepting the loss, or just putting out a defensive statement, she initiated the unprecedented project of re-recording her entire back catalog.
Right, Taylor's version.
Yes. Releasing 1989 Taylor's version in 2023 allowed her to reclaim commercial licensing and ownership of the masters.
She took the power back.
Exactly. And when Blank Space Taylor's version debuted, it proved the enduring structural perfection of the song.
Yeah, it was a massive hit all over again.
Right, because it resonated globally nearly a decade later. It was stripped of the immediate 2014 tabloid context, but people still loved it because the underlying songwriting is just ironclad.
It stands on its own.
It does.
So, looking at this massive stack of sources you compiled, what is the core takeaway for you, the listener? I mean, this isn't just a history lesson on a pop star fighting off Gawker-era bloggers.
No, it's much bigger than that.
It really is a blueprint for navigating unfair criticism in your own life.
Yeah.
When human nature demands that we defensively scream, that's not who I am.
Yeah.
In the face of judgment, this deep dive offers a counterintuitive alternative.
You disarm the criticism.
Yes, you disarm it by trying on the caricature they've drawn of you. You wear it like a costume, you exaggerate it until it becomes absurd, and you make it work to your advantage. You strip your critics of their power by basically owning the joke.
Owning the joke. That is exactly. The dual-level functionality of Blank Space is what secures its legacy.
Yeah.
It is a masterclass in tension. It operates flawlessly as a brain-off, incredibly infectious electropop anthem.
You can dance to it without thinking about it at all.
Right. You can experience it entirely on a surface level. But simultaneously, it operates as a highly sophisticated metatextual critique of media sexism, tabloid culture, and musical tropes.
It's doing so much heavy lifting.
It is. It satisfies the casual listener and the intense music theorist in the exact same breath. It established Swift as a true cultural tactician.
A cultural tactician. I think that is the exact phrase that encapsulates this entire deep dive.
But analyzing this unreliable narrator leaves us with a pretty provocative thought regarding our own lives.
Okay, lay it on us.
Especially in the era of social media, right? We all engage in constant curation. We carefully construct the daydream version of our lives for public consumption.
Right, the highlight reel.
Exactly. So Blank Space holds up a very specific kind of mirror.
Yeah.
If you were forced to write a narrative from the perspective of the worst things people secretly assume about you, the gossip, the jealousies, the flaws.
Oh, wow.
How much of that narrative would be purely satirical fiction, and how much of it might actually expose an uncomfortable truth about your own hidden tendencies?
That is a heavy question to leave everyone with. The blank space is always sitting there on the page. It just depends on whose name you decide to write in it. Until the next deep dive, keep analyzing the narratives around you.